So I thought I'd come down here in the chicken coop again and show you the update of the chickens and the little chickens that we incubated. Oh gosh, I don't know, what has that been, 3 months ago? I don't remember. So here they are. Now the white ones, you'll remember, are the Brahmas. The Brahmas are the wintertime birds, and they're going to be our future meat birds. Brahmas get up to about 10 pounds, the roosters do. The females get up to about 8 pounds. So that's a pretty good sized bird for meat birds. Now they produce eggs primarily in the winter, which is good because we could use eggs in the winter. We only have, I think, 4 chickens now that produce in the winter. So now here is one that you'll see is one we incubated. Actually, all these right here are the ones we incubated. And we haven't lost any. We've got, 15 incubated birds. We've got 7 Brahmas. The Brahmas, we have 5 females and 2 males. And the rest are all the incubated ones. We have 2 that they're fairly large. They've already went back in the back. They should be laying eggs pretty soon. Those are the ones that Mama hatched, and we had to bring them inside because the other birds were picking on them pretty bad. Please ignore the mess. We had a storm come through here the other day, and I've been meaning to replace this canvas here. The sun has really dried it out and rips really easy. Well, what happened was the storm came through and ripped that entire panel off, so I temporarily put a blue tarp there, and I've ordered a new white one. I'm thinking maybe I should get a few of them just in case they rip or something. The white ones last pretty good. Here's a tarp that I replaced, I don't know, last year, and it's still hanging there in there really well. But these canvases on these tents, they don't last very long at all. The sun just eats them up. So something just to kind of think about in case something goes wrong with our economy or whatever. You know, we keep talking about SHTF here recently. And just in case something goes wrong, you got to think about all the things that, okay, what do I need? If something happens, I can replace it. And you have a stockpile of replaced parts, I guess. The chickens, I don't understand that these little bitty chickens, for some reason, empty somehow or another their feed bowl and they dump it all over the ground. I mean, they eat it all. It's not like they waste it, but they just dump it over there. And the adults, they don't do that. It's the first time I ever seen chickens do this, so I don't know if it's a certain chicken doing it or all of them are doing it. That would concern me if they were wasting the food, but they're not. With these crumbles, a lot of times they'll leave that behind. They won't eat it off the ground, but they're doing okay. So it's getting a little warm again today. They're not panting too bad, but they are hiding underneath there. That is one of the disadvantages with having that blue tarp, is that heats up the building. The darker colors get hotter. You know, we use that for showers. People talk about, I use the sun in a black bag to heat up my water. Well, that's exactly what's happening here. So the white reflects it. It doesn't get near as hot. But you can see they're hanging out underneath this coroplast building that I built. I guess it's cooler down there for some reason. But they're growing up nicely. So I've been talking about SHTF here recently and how preppers keep talking about stockpiling. I just saw another video. They're constantly talking about stockpiling. It's just not the way to do it. I'm convinced that if you're stockpiling, preparing for SHTF, that eventually you're going to run out of food. I've not heard too many preppers talk about what they're going to do when they run out of their stockpile. They're going to run out. You have to start thinking about, what are you going to do for the next 20 years? If the economy crashes, I mean, think about the Great Depression. How long did it take to get out of the Great Depression? 10, 15 years? I don't know exactly, but it wasn't overnight. It wasn't a couple of years. So if the economy's so bad and the electric grid goes down, I mean, we're talking about the zombie apocalypse, right? Can you live self-sustaining? And I don't think many people can. I mean, we were talking about this tarp. I have to think of something that might be a more permanent solution. Maybe build something. I mean, this has been pretty nice and lightweight and I can move it around, but maybe I need to put a piece of plywood over it or something. Build something out of branches. I don't understand how preppers intend to last very long. I told you a while back I had a prepper get on my channel and tell me that I was making the preppers mad, that they know what they're doing. And the first thing he said was I had 3 years worth of stockpiled food. Okay, what are you going to do after 3 years in one day? You got to have a plan that you can replenish your stockpile. I've said many times I got a year's worth of stocked food, but we eat that food. It's not that we just stockpile it and we got it in reserves. We eat it. And then I just showed you the chickens. We're going to butcher the ones we incubated, the off-colored ones, not the Brahmas. And once we get done butchering them, or when it gets closer to time they get butchered, we'll incubate some more. Hopefully before summer is up. That way they can come outside, and by the time it gets cold, they'll have feathers and we won't have to worry about keeping them inside to keep them warm. So we're trying to experiment, figuring out how much food we can produce each year. Of course, we have our eggs. Carolyn and I were just talking about this today. The chickens are keeping up with us, and it was just by luck they're keeping up with us. They're keeping up with us and the cat. Carolyn started feeding the cat some eggs. It was just 1 egg a day. And they're not overwhelming us. So we don't have to store eggs. You know, storing eggs, people talk about, well, you can, water glass them, I think is what they call it. Well, we don't have to water glass them because we eat what we produce. And it stays fresher, less risk of losing your eggs. We have this plan that we're going to have eggs in the winter now. Last year we only got about 4 eggs a day. Well, I don't even know if we got 4 eggs a day. 1 to 4 eggs, let's put it that way, a day, because the New Hampshires were producing through the winter. We only got 4 of those. None of the Americanas produce through the winter. Now I know somebody's going to say, well, why don't you just have breeds that can produce all year round? Well, that just doesn't work out that way. The New Hampshires are laying right now. They lay eggs, but they slow way down. In the winter, they produce more. So you got to have that balance. But we won't get any more Buff Orpingtons. That's the one. We like the Americanas. They produce colored eggs in the winter or summertime. And the Brahmas produce eggs in the wintertime. But the Buff Orpingtons, they don't produce there in the winter. But the bigger problem is they go broody all through the summer. I mean, they produce a lot of eggs when they're producing, but when they go broody, they stop producing for 3 weeks. That's pretty devastating. So we won't get any more of them. As a matter of fact, we'll probably butcher the Buff Orpingtons and replace it with some of those that we incubated. We had 3 Buff Orpingtons, and we'll replace them. We'll actually have 5, because the 2, I don't know, they look just like Buff Orpingtons. We'll see how well they do. The 2 that we had in there with the Brahmas, they turned out to look just like Buff Orpingtons, even though their dad is Americana. Very weird. But regardless, we'll see how they do, and if they don't produce through the summertime, you know, if they go broody, we'll go ahead and butcher those next year. But you got to think about how you're constantly resupplying after there's no stores, because stockpiling isn't going to work for you. Everybody's got this limited amount of food, and they all say it. Now, the other thing I wanted to address is the solar panels real quick. I want you to be careful with what people are telling you. I want you to do your own homework. I saw this video the other day, and he was talking about how he can power a cook stove with 1,000 watts of solar panels and 7 lithium-ion batteries, and that anybody should be able to do that. Well, I don't see that happening. I figure a heating pad is either 700 or 1,500 watts. Probably more like 1,500 watts. So he's got 1,000 watts of solar. So that means he's using more electricity per hour than he's producing. And then he's got anywhere from, I don't know, depends if he's got 50 watt batteries or 100 watt batteries. My guess is it's 50 watt batteries, because lithium ion batteries are expensive. So if he's got 7 of them and they're 50 watts, what's that, 350 watts? So he can't even make it 15 minutes on his little heat pad. It's just the math doesn't add up. And that's what I'm seeing from all these preppers. They're trying to convince you how great they are, and they want you to follow their path, but their path is just wrong. I'm not telling you you can do anything. There is a limited amount of things I can do. I have a limited amount of electric. One of the things that I've talked about repeatedly is the well. I don't have enough power to run the well off solar panels. Give me a minute. if the refrigerator is hooked up. I have to do it on days it's real sunny. That's another thing. His 1,000 watts of solar, it's only on sunny days that he can do it. Cloudy days, well, yesterday was cloudy and I had to run the generator for, what, 2 hours? It got the batteries mostly charged, but there was still a little bit not charged. So I couldn't have ran the well yesterday. So it's gotta be really sunny. Now, if I don't have the refrigerator on, I can run the well pretty much any time. I don't use that much water. So the batteries would have 2 or 3 days to recharge and then I could do it again. To cook with, I just don't see it happening with that small amount of electricity. So what I was saying is Carolyn cooks over here on her grill that she created. I've showed you this a lot of times. And I don't understand what the big deal is. This is not hard, but I hear a lot of people say, you can't do that. That's gonna take too much time. Life is going to really not be very enjoyable in an SHTF if you haven't already set up for it. You have to practice, you have to get used to it. Carolyn enjoys cooking on the grill here. She really does. Our life will have to change a little bit. Of course, we got to get off propane. Propane is convenience for us, but it wouldn't be that hard. We can heat our water right here. The other thing is the generator runs on gas or propane. But again, I wouldn't need the generator at all if we got off the refrigerator. I'd only fill the water on nice sunny days and the batteries are charged. That's the only time I would have to do it. I don't even think we use, now that the leak is fixed on the IBC tank, we probably don't even use 20 gallons of water per day. You have to get into a mindset of how am I actually going to do it by doing it. You have to test yourself. Testing yourself during an SHTF situation, it's too late. You've already lost the game. Every day we learn something new that we should have done differently or we need to do differently, just like the tarps. I learned a lesson there. I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning putting on a tarp thinking, well, if this was SHTF, I wouldn't have a tarp. So if you can click that super thanks button down there, I'd really appreciate it. So I hope I can inspire you to really practice so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.